Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be a true crime case and it's on the disappearance of Kortne Stouffer. So a disclaimer before I begin, I research all my own information and I do my best to make sure that I have accurate and confirmed information. So if I get something incorrect or I'm missing something, please feel free to comment that below. With that being said, let's jump into the case. Kortne Sierra Stouffer is described by her parents as fun-loving and free-spirited. When asked to describe Kortne in an interview with Crime Watch Daily, her dad said that she was like the sun, full of beauty, warmth, brilliance, and brightness. Her mom said her laughter was loud and contagious. Kortne was full of giddy and love and exuberant. She loved to laugh and have fun. And her mom also described her as being very bold and feisty, especially when she was growing up. Her mom said that she definitely had a mind of her own and that would irritate people sometimes when she would give them her opinion. And according to her dad, if there was someone that Kortne didn't like, she made sure that you knew that. According to the Charlie Project, Kortne was 5 feet 8 inches tall. She was Caucasian, weighing about 115 pounds, with blonde hair worn in dreadlocks and green eyes. She had a tattoo with the words "One Love" on her right bicep, one on her left foot of stars, and a third one of flowers and a pistol on her left hip. At the time of her disappearance, she was living with her boyfriend Bradley, his dog, and her black lab, Shiva, or Sheba. I'm not exactly sure which one it is. Kortne was just like any other 21-year-old, trying to figure out who she was and just living life, hanging out with friends, and finding her independence. The building that Kortne lived in was a duplex with each section split in half, which made 4 separate apartments. The apartment below Kortne was occupied by a couple named Janice and Rich. The apartment next to Kortne was occupied by a man named Todd. And the 4th apartment I wasn't sure about. I couldn't find any information as to if anyone was living there at the time that Kortne was. And this was located in Palmyra, Pennsylvania. Palmyra is a small, quiet town close to where she grew up, and as of the 2010 census has a population of 7,320 in an area of 1.9 square miles. It's a beautiful area with beautiful mountains and hills and farmlands, but then not very far from a bigger city, Harrisburg. On July 28, 2012, Kortne and her boyfriend decided to have a small party at their home. They were having fun, drinking, playing games, and cooking out, but that very shortly came to a close around 9 p.m. when the cops showed up. They were supposedly responding to a noise complaint issued by a neighbor. At the time, Kortne's boyfriend was on probation for a DUI, and drinking alcohol was a violation of his parole. I've seen in a few sources that he was not actually 21 at the time, which would make sense as to why drinking alcohol was a violation of that probation. And because of that, he ended up going to jail that night. So he was taken away when the cops came on the noise complaint because he was drinking alcohol. So Kortne was obviously very upset about this and was very upset for her neighbors calling the cops. According to Kortne's mother, she started having issues with the neighbors pretty much as soon as she moved in. Her mom described the couple that lived underneath Kortne as being a little older and not being too pleased to have a younger couple moving in above them. In the interview with the Vanish podcast, Kortne's mom describes Todd, the neighbor that lived next door to Kortne, as being like the creepy neighbor dude, but she really doesn't elaborate on this at all, and I can't really find any particular event or reasons of why she feels this way about him, but I thought that was very interesting for her to say. So I'm not sure if anything inappropriate ever happened or if he was just nosy or what exactly the circumstances or situation was that made her feel like that. But going back to the night of July 28th, Kortne called her mom after her boyfriend was arrested and told her about what happened and was really upset. Her mom told Kortne she was more than welcome to come stay at her house or come over, but Kortne said that she didn't want to and that she just wanted to get out of the house and go have fun with her friends. So this is what she did. There's varying accounts of how exactly the plans came about, but Kortne ended up going and riding with two of her friends to a neighboring town of Harrisburg and went to a few bars there. While at a bar called the Hardware Bar, Kortne got into an altercation with a girl and her boyfriend and got kicked out of the bar. Now, there are no video cameras or anyone besides the two friends of Kortne's to corroborate this story, so there's not a lot of detail as to how the altercation started and what it was about. After being kicked out of the bar, Kortne and her two other friends, Milton and Cody, drove back to Palmyra, got some pizza at a pizza place, and Cody, who was driving Milton's car, dropped Milton off and then drove with Kortne back to her apartment. Cody was the designated driver that night. Kortne's mom thinks that the reason why she had Cody come back with her is because of the altercations that she had had with her neighbors, and maybe she would feel safer having a guy around. However, this is just speculation. This is just what Kortne's mom thinks that her mindset might have been when her and Cody went back. Kortne was still really upset about her boyfriend getting arrested, and when they got back to the apartment, Kortne and her neighbor get into a verbal altercation. There's some discrepancy regarding if Kortne confronted her neighbor, Todd, or if Todd confronted Kortne. There are different sources saying different things, but either way, they got into a verbal altercation and the cops were called again. And when they got there, Kortne and Todd were in each other's faces, chest to chest, about to get into a fight, is what it looked like. Cody said that he had to break them up. However, with the sources that I read, said that when the cops got there, they were chest to chest. So I'm not sure when or if Cody really did step in between them. Some of the stories are a little different with how that all played out. But either way, they were in each other's faces, and the cops told them all to leave each other alone and go back to their own apartments and just leave each other alone. According to Cody, Kortne was very upset, and when they got into her apartment, she started stomping around on the ground, presumably to piss off her neighbors who lived below her. And according to Cody, he tried to calm her down and then they went to sleep. Cody fell asleep and he woke up around 7 a.m. and didn't see Kortne. He said he assumed that she was sleeping in another room and he left the apartment. He was seen at a local convenience store on their video surveillance cameras there around 7:30, and he was making a phone call and he was texting, and on Kortne's cell phone it showed that he did text her and basically said, "Hey, didn't see you, text me when you get up." But going back to a few hours prior to this, the police actually showed up a third time at around 4:12 a.m. from what I assume is the noise complaint from when Kortne was stomping her feet onto the ceiling of her neighbors below her. When the police got there at 4:12, no one was outside and they couldn't hear anything or see anything, and so they left. In later interviews, Cody would say that he did not hear the cops knocking on Kortne's door at that time, though the cops said that they did knock on her door. Kortne was supposed to go later that day on Sunday with her brother to a local fair, something that they did every year, but Kortne never showed up. According to her mom, Kortne never missed this fair, and after speaking with Kortne's brother later on Sunday, Kortne's mom had a bad feeling and decided that first thing on Monday, she was going to go check on Kortne at her apartment. When she got there, she noticed that the door was unlocked. And when she went into the apartment, nothing really seemed to be off except for Kortne's dog clearly had made messes and had accidents on the floor, which she said didn't ever really happen because Kortne always made sure she took out the dogs. So she cleaned up the mess and went around the house calling out for Kortne to see where she was. She saw that Kortne's phone was plugged into the charger next to her bed. Her keys were on the floor where she said she usually would throw them, along with her shoes, and her car was open, her windows were all down. Everything seemed to be pretty much how it normally is, and nothing seemed to be out of sorts or unusual, except for Kortne just not being there. After some time had passed and she still couldn't get a hold of Kortne, her mom decided to contact the police. The police pretty much from the beginning figured that something happened to Kortne. All of her personal items were still at home, her keys, her wallet, her money, her cell phone, everything was still there. And so they didn't think that she had just left on her own accord. So from the beginning they had pretty much determined that either she was missing or it was a homicide. Police didn't really know where to start though because there was no sign of foul play. Her mom said that police and family searched all over the area, searched in dumpsters, trash cans, fields, just everywhere and anywhere that they could. But nothing of Kortne ever came up. Authorities say that everyone that came into contact with Kortne the night before she disappeared was questioned. Nothing else really happened in the case until 2014 when a potential lead kind of threw everyone for a huge loop. A woman named Amanda Ballister came forward and originally first talked to Kortne's mom, and Kortne's mom told her that she needed to contact the police. And what she was contacting the police about was the story that she had told Kortne's mom. So she said that she knew what happened to Kortne, and it's pretty disturbing. So she claims that two men called the police the first time that night. So remember, they came around 9 o'clock when they were having that party at Kortne's apartment. And because her boyfriend was on probation and violating it, he got brought to jail. So this girl is saying that that was planned and that these two people called the cops so that they can get Kortne's boyfriend out of the house. And they did this so that they could then break into the house and steal money and drugs that they claim were in the house. According to Amanda, they then killed Kortne, wrapped her up in a carpet, and after weighing her body down, sunk it in a local lake. The authorities and Kortne's mom were skeptical of this story. However, they did follow through and completely searched the lake that she claimed that Kortne was in. No sign of Kortne or a carpet or anything was found in the lake. So now we're going to focus a little bit more on the two friends that Kortne was with that night. So according to Kortne's mom, Cody and Milton who were the two people that Kortne was with that night, are really good friends, and Kortne used to hang out with them a lot more before she started dating her boyfriend. Now Cody and Milton hung out with a third guy also named Arvard, and apparently they were all friends. When Kortne started dating her boyfriend, she slowly stopped hanging out with Milton and Cody as much and started hanging out more with her boyfriend's friends. But there's something very interesting about that friendship. Now, this next information is from the interview that the Vanished podcast did with Kortne's mom. Kortne's mom said that a few weeks prior to Kortne disappearing, she told her mom that she was upset with her friend Arvard because while Kortne was out of the apartment getting a tattoo one night, her apartment was ransacked, and she believed that Arvard was responsible. Now, she asked Kortne what was taken or why he would ransack her apartment, and Kortne was more vague on the details and didn't really discuss anything further about that with her mom. Now, there's speculation and hearsay that her mom has heard that he ransacked and broke into the apartment to get drugs. But again, that's hearsay and there's nothing confirming that information. But that's still very interesting, especially with what Amanda Ballister had come forward and said that she heard or knew what happened with Kortne. Some more very interesting information that I learned on the Vanish podcast is some more information about Arvard, Milton, and Cody. So this part I really couldn't confirm, and so I just want to make sure that you know that and take this next information with a grain of salt. But if someone can confirm it, that would be great, and I would love for you to leave that in the comments below. But Marissa on the Vanish podcast said that the couple that Kortne got into an argument with at the bar, remember Kortne got in an argument with a woman and her boyfriend at the hardware bar and she got kicked out for it. That couple was Arvord and his girlfriend. But because there were no video cameras at the bar, we can't confirm that. Apparently Kortne was arguing with them because she was calling him out basically for ransacking and breaking into her apartment. So that's just one part of it. So more information that was disclosed on the Vanish podcast is that supposedly in October of 2016, Arvord was sentenced to 5 to 10 years in a state prison for a crime committed in 2012, just months after Kortne went missing. And he and 3 men broke into someone's home where a woman and her 9-year-old were sleeping. They all had dark clothes on and masks, and 2 of them had guns. One of them held the mother and her child at gunpoint while the other 2 went and robbed the house. He was charged with burglary, robbery, criminal trespassing, terroristic threats, unlawful restraints, theft by unlawful taking, false imprisonment, simple assault, recklessly endangering another person, and loitering and prowling at nighttime. And that's not everything. Milton apparently, allegedly, took a plea in 2016 for a burglary when him and another man kicked down a man's door and assaulted him. He was charged with burglary, aggravated assault, terroristic threats, criminal trespassing, simple assault, and harassment. Again, I could not confirm these. I tried to, and I tried looking up the criminal records, but I have to pay like a membership fee to these different websites that have this information. So again, if anyone has any other ways or free ways of confirming people's criminal records, then that would be great. If you could leave that information in the comments below, that would definitely help this aspect of the case and to find out if this information is correct or not. But this definitely brings into question what Amanda Ballister had talked about, because these crimes are super eerily similar to possibly what happened with Kortne. So with that, we'll go on to discussing the theories. There are a few main theories in this case. No one really believes that Kortne ran away. Like I said earlier, her phone was there, her keys, her wallet, her money, her shoes, everything was all at her apartment. So no one really believes that she ran away. So the first main theory is that something happened with her neighbors, and one of her neighbors did something to her after their many conflicts that they had that night. This is backed up by the numerous arguments that she had gotten into with those neighbors that night. They had the cops called on them 3 different times. But there are also several issues with this theory. So one major issue with this is the cops left the second time around 3:45 in the morning and then came back the third time around 4:12. That's less than 30 minutes to attack Kortne, do something with her body, and make sure there's no evidence around by the time the cops came the third time. And according to the authorities and the neighbors, their houses were searched and nothing has been publicly said that was found in either one of their apartments. And also, I feel like this theory kind of doesn't make sense to me because, in my opinion, my view is that you're not going to get that emotionally attached or emotionally upset by your neighbors, especially when it's just them making noise. You can be upset and frustrated with them, but to go that far as to take their life. I know this type of thing does happen, but in this situation, I personally don't believe that Kortne's neighbors had anything to do with her disappearance. The second theory is that Cody did something to Kortne. This theory is backed up with certain evidence from that night. He was the last person to see Kortne. He was the last person with Kortne in her apartment, privately, alone with her. What if the banging on the floor that her neighbors heard wasn't Kortne stomping on the floor? Maybe it was her being attacked by Cody and it was her fighting him off that they heard. The only issue with this theory is, though, is that Cody had Milton's car, and Milton's car and his home have been searched. I'm not sure if they had brought cadaver dogs to search and to smell his car. I think that's a huge point of contention with this theory, is that if the cadaver dogs did go, or any dogs went in with the searches and they did sniff out the car and they cleared him, that's one thing. But if they just manually searched the car and didn't find anything, I don't think that that necessarily clears him for that. But that would be his only way of doing something with Kortne or Kortne's body once and if he attacked her in her apartment. And there's no sign of a struggle in her apartment, so that also dampens the theory a little bit as well. The third theory is that someone came in and harmed Kortne. Now, the only issue with this theory is that nothing that we know of was stolen. Kortne's mom says that there was money in the apartment. Kortne's phone, her keys, her wallet were all still there. But I'm thinking if this theory has any validity, it could be that they stole other things, or that they went for money that was stored in a specific place. For example, if her and her boyfriend Bradley were selling drugs, maybe someone knew where they hid them, or just knew that they had them in the apartment. They also could have figured there was money in there as well if they were selling drugs. There are a few possible scenarios within this theory. Either someone called the cops on Kortne's party to intentionally get Bradley arrested so that he wouldn't be in the apartment that night. This kind of goes along with the Amanda Ballister allegations that she came forward with to Kortne's mother and the police. The other scenario of this theory is that someone used the situation as an opportunity to break into their apartment without having Bradley there. I would think that in this scenario, Cody has to know what's happened because he's in the apartment the whole time, unless he was just in a completely different room and didn't wake up for anything happening to Kortne. But I just think it's unlikely that Cody wouldn't know anything about it or hear anything. So maybe he's possibly an accomplice in the burglary and maybe something goes wrong, or this was just the plan from the beginning. Either way. Also, I think with this theory, it seems like if this did happen, then it points to someone who knew Kortne doing this and not just a stranger, because they would have had to know that Kortne had drugs if that was the case in the apartment, or had to have known that she had money or something of value to steal to go through with it. I don't believe that would be just a random person. I think that in that scenario, it has to be someone that is familiar with Kortne or Bradley or their situation, if that is the situation. And the final theory is that Kortne left her apartment that night and something happened to her outside of her apartment. The only issue with this theory is that there's literally no evidence for or against it, because there's no real evidence of foul play in the first place other than Kortne's missing. Kortne's mom said in an interview with the Vanished podcast that Kortne took her dog everywhere, even to work, and that she doesn't believe that Kortne would have just left the dog at the apartment if she went anywhere. I don't know if this really rules out this theory completely, though, because Kortne may have left her dog inside if she planned on only being gone for a couple minutes, or if she was just running out to her car or something. But this theory does have some holes in it. When would it have happened? The police were back at the apartment at 4:12 a.m., about a half an hour since they were there the second time. Would a random attacker be lurking around a building that just had cops around it? Or maybe it was later on after the cops left the third time. Cody said that he fell asleep shortly after getting into the apartment, so maybe Kortne woke up or stayed up and Cody just didn't know about it. Or maybe Kortne met someone outside. Maybe she was doing some sort of drug deal and figured she would be right back and left her phone and her shoes and everything because she was just running in and out. If this was the case, wouldn't Kortne have texts on her phone maybe with the person she was meeting? The investigators haven't given a lot of detail with this case. It is an active investigation, so we don't know how much evidence the cops do have, and they're just not telling anyone, or what kind of evidence that they are holding to themselves to keep the integrity of the investigation. Either way, this theory seems more unlikely to me because of the amount of time when the cops left the second and when they came back the third time, as well as just the amount of attention from the police that apartment had had in general that night. And I just don't think that someone would risk going there with all that police traffic. This case has so much going on, it's hard to say for sure what happened to Kortne because she was involved with so many conflicts the night and the morning she disappeared. The theory I believe is most plausible is that Cody had something to do with it. He was the only one in the apartment. He was the last person to see her alive. He was the only one there with her during the time when she would have disappeared. I'm not sure in what way he was involved. I think that depends on whether or not Kortne and her boyfriend were selling drugs. If they were, then the accusations brought up by Amanda Ballister become more of a possibility. If they were selling drugs, I don't believe that this should be in any way a factor in whether her case gets attention or not. I think every missing persons case is important. Every life is important. And I think that in every case, we should be doing everything we can to get those people back to their loved ones. I do believe, though, that if they were selling drugs, it could be a factor in Kortne's disappearance, and those avenues should be investigated further if that is the truth. So tell me what you think happened to Kortne in the comments below. Do you think that her neighbors are responsible? Do you think Cody had something to do with it? Do you have a theory that I missed? Or if you could somehow confirm the information discussed earlier about the alleged criminal records of the three men, tell me what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button. And if you want to see more content from me and more true crime videos, make sure to hit the subscribe button and that bell so that you're notified whenever I drop a video. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day. Bye.